Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of history. And what is our topic today? Understanding Indian history. There is a most important chapter, understanding of Indian history, and there is a first point, source for the reconstructing ascent Indian history. There is a most important here, source. The source for reconstructing ascent Indian history. There is a most important point here. A historian need to the source material to reconstruct their past, but source are thus signals do not reveal to the past. They need interpretations and the historians make them speak. In fact, the historians is expected to track the source and read text flow to the clue, ask relevant and question across the check the evidence to offer to meaningful explanation. For example, in 1926, a Carl's Marsons is noticed that the high walls and the tower on the old settlement in a Harappa village of the western Punjab, now in a Pakistan, and five decided to the later Sir Alexander Consumed is a collected some seals from the site, but it is a to a archaeologist is a John Marshall's another 50 years to the identity the oldest civilization in the Indian regions. We shall offer there is the another example regarding to the historians is a task to close the check is a corroborate or different types of evidence. Now here in the source of pertaining to the King Harsha is the 7th century AD, do we find a mention of the defeat at the hand of the Chanakya rule of the Placations and the two. But their inscription of the Placations to his claims a victory over Harsha, and in this case it is a Avils that is a Harsa is the biographer is a Bana Bhatt who is wrote to the Hars Charitra and related to that did not be mentioned their defeat of the Perons. And the literate to the meaning of the Itihasa is there. Itihas is this is was and is translated in a history. The Itihasa is this is was there translated by a history, and there was a time when only written to record were to acknowledge and the authentic source of history. The written materials could be verified, cited, and the cross-checked, and oral evidence is a method, and the folk is a song was never considered as a valid source. Earlier historians used the methods, the fictions, and their oral traditional in the limited and the way on the account of their lack of the authorities and verifiability. The verifiability, but the today this is a unconventionally source are began used to the eventually there is a traditional and cultural traits should be a studies in their light of other historical fact. There is a most important here itihasa. For example, the Mahabharata is a story of conflict between two sets of the warring cousins. The warring cousins here want not be sure whether there is a real war and the narrated in the epic. And some historians believe that is a war did happen when the other wait for the corroborative evidence for the event. The original story was probably to composed by the Bharas, known as the Sutas, who is generally is accompanying the Kasustria is a warrior to be a battlefield and recited a poem in the palaces of the victories and other achievement of their heroes. This is a compositions is were circulated to orally and is a preserved as a part of a human memory. The most important topic here literacy source. There is the most important and the first year religious literature. There is a religious literature is the most important for evidence of the history. The most ancient Indian text contain our religious themes, and these are known as the Veds. Ved is the most important here. There are assigned to C is a 1500 to the 500 BC backward century, and their Vedas are four in a number. The Rig Veda mainly consists of prayer. The Rig Veda here is the only for the prayers. The other three is a Samya, Azur, and Earth contain a prayer, rituals, magic, and the mythological story. There is a most important here. Their content prayer and the restricted is a magic and mythological story. The Upanishad is a content to the is a philosophical is a discussion on the Atma and Paramatma. There is a Upanishad here is the most important. There is a discuss here Atma and Paramatma, and they are also referred to be Vedant. There is a Vedant is very important here. The two epics is a Ramayana and Mahabharata is a seem to has been to finally is a complied by their AD 400 of the two. The Mahabharata is attributed to the cells Vyasa, and it is original to consist of the 8,800 verses, and there is a called Jaya Gita or the song dealing with the victory. Jaya Gita are there or declined with the victory, and this later go to expand it to the 40,000 verses and the come to known as the Bharata, because they are containing to a story of the is descendant of one of the earliest Vedic tribes is called Bharata. A further expanded version of 1 lakh verses was the named Mahabharata. The first of all is the 24,000 verses here, but today is a 1 lakh verses was named to the Mahabharata. And similarly, the Ramayana of the Valmiki originally is a consist of 600 verses and then 12,000 verses and the finally expanded to 24,000 verses. There is a most important here. In the post-Vedic period after the BC of 600, we have recorded a large number of literature on the moral value is called Sutra. Grand public other is sacrifice to be performed by the rules and recorded in a Saras Sutra, and will the domestical rituals is connected with the birth, naming, square, thread, and ceremony is marriage, furnace, etc. The prescribed there is a Greek Sutras is their literature was a complete between to the BC is a 600 to the 300 BC here. There is a most important. The religious is a book of the Jains and Buddhists refer to the historical person and incidents is connected with their is a respective religions. And the earliest Buddhist text is where to the written in a Pali. The Pali is the written by the Buddhist in their inscription, and they are called three patak. There is a call to the three patak and three basket. We is a Sutpatak, Vinay Patak, and Abhidham Patak. There is the most important here, three Patak. And of the most important non-religious Buddhist literature are there is Jataks. There is a content of story of the preview birth of the Buddha. It is the belief that before he was actually born in the Gautam. The Buddha is a passed through over to 550 is the births. Each birth story is called to the Jatak. Jatak is called to the 550 birth here called Jatak. This story through there is available is a light on the social and economical condition of the period between the 5th and 2nd century BC. The Jaina is a text where written in a Prakritik, and there is a eventually is a complete in the 6th century AD is a Valavi in a Gujarat. Is a Valavi in Gujarat. There is a called Angas. Angas and contain to the philosophically concept of the Jains. Next topic is a cellular literature. There is a most important for the understanding of history. This category of literature does not have a religion as the theme, and to this is a class belong to the Dharma Shastra as their law book, which are prescribed there is a duty for a different social group. Dharma Shastra is the most important book. There is a duty for different social group, and they set out a punishment for a person guilty of thief, murder, adultery, etc. The earliest law book is the Manu Samriti. Manu Samriti is the most important. It was the first book translated by the British and format is a basis of a Hindu code of a law. The Arthashastra is a Kautilya provides the rich of material for the study of Indian economics and politics of the Mauryan period. There is a most important here Arthashastra. There is a provided by the is a Kautilya. There is a Mauryan period, And the work on the grammar are also sometimes useful for a historical reconstruction. Their earliest and their most important work on a grammar is the Astosya is written by the Pani, which is written by the scholar to around 700 BC. There is a most important. The work of the Kalidas, who is lived during to the Gupta period, is comprised of poem and drama. There is a Kalidas is the most important for the Gupta period, and there is a poem and drama is a comprised. The famous among them are the Abhijanta Sakutlam. Abhijata Sakutlam is a very important, and Ritu Sumara and the Meghadutam. There is the most important here. And when studies began to great create of composition, they provide us with the glass piece of the social and cultural life of Guptas. There is a most important for the Kalidas. There is a compressed by the poem and drama for the Gupta period, and the Abhijat Sakuntalam and the Ritu Shahara and the Meghadutam. There is a most important is the compositions. And for the history of the Kashmir, we have an important books called is a Tarangani. Raj Tarangani written by the Kalhan. Raj Tarangani is written by the Kalhan in the 12 AD. The biographies as characterized as a very important non-religion text for written in history. They are written by the court poet in the Paris of their foreign rules. As there is a tendency among them to the exaggerated and the achievement of the poem, and they have to be studied with the corrections, and the one such important text is the Harsh Charitra. Harsh Charitra written by the Banabhatta in the Paris of the Harshvardhana. There is the most important here. Harsh Charitra written by the is a Banabhatta is a Paris of the Harsh Charitra Vardhana. The early South Indian literature is called to the Sangam literature. It was written in a Tamil and celebrated is the nature. It was produced by the poet who joined together in the assemblies of Sangam, is patronized by the chief and king during to the first 4 century of the Christian era. The literature is a consist of the short and long poem is the press of the various hero, edited probably to be restricted in the court. It is also as a constitute there is a epics called to the Silpa Dhikram. Silpa Kadikram and many Mekhalali. There is a Sangam literature is our major source for the study of South Indian society, economics and political during to the BC 300 to the AD 300. And the inscriptions of given to the Sangam literatures are confirmed by the archaeologically is a find an account of the foregone travelers. There is the most important topic arrive here, non-literacy source. Non-literacy source here, the first here inscription. Inscription is the most important source here. The inscription are the permanent written engraved on the hard surface such as stone, metal, or is a terracotta. There is the most important here, the permanent written here. There are stone, metals and terracotta. The study of inscription is called epigraphy. The study of the inscription is called to the epigraphy. Their earliest inscription is were written on a stone, and they usually record to the achievement, activities and idea of those who got them to inscribe. And so we get inscriptions, and which is a glorif their exploit of a kings or a mention of donations made by the man woman for a religious purpose. These inscriptions which are there composed by poets in the paradise of kings and peloton, and now as a parasastrics. Parasastrics is a some is inscription carry of date, other are the dated on the basis of the paleographic styles of written. With a fair amount of the precautions and the precisions, and the earliest inscription were a Prakritic, a name for a language user ordinary people. In the later time, Tamil and Sanskriti were also used to be written to the inscription. The Maurya king Ashok was the first person to issue the inscription. There is the most important, note the point, the Mauryan king Ashok was the first person to issue the inscription. There is start of the Ashok for the written inscription here, and most of the inscription are is a Prakritic language. There is a Prakritic language is the most important this time, and written in the Brahmi script through there, some in the northwest. Were written to the Karaksi is the Aramaic and Greek script were used for the inscription in the Afghanistan, so that their local people could be understand their subject matter. That is the most important. The Brahmi script was the first is a deferred in the 1837 by James Prinsep, who was a civil servant during to the British rule. The Brahmi was the and the written from the left to right like a Hindi will a Kharosthi from right to left. Ashokan, his inscription helped to the greatly his understanding his religious and administrative policy. For the first century BC, the king started to the grantings land to religious people. The Satyavadhan king of the decline were to the first one to be do so. And this inscription recorded the consequence and the granted to be done is a receive a grant. Is a done is there is a receive of grant such a inscription help in us in the finding out of religious and economical activity of period. Some of these inscriptions are written on stone, but most on copper plate. The copper plate used on this time. The copper plate is a character where is probably give as a record of the transgression to those who is received the land and were a granted consequence. That is the most important here. However, there is some limitation of the inscriptional and evidence. For example, sometime letter are very faintly is engraved and thus the reconstruction are uncontaining. Also, inscription may be a damaged or later missing. Besides, it is not always too easy to be sure about the exact meaning of the word used in the inscription, and some of which may be a specific to a particular place or time. 10 point here are knowledge test is there as a coin. There is the most important here. The coin is the most important for the SN period is the recognized. There is the study of the coins is known as the is a numismatics, and it is not only include the visual element such as the script and the image on the coin, but also is a metaphysically analysis. A sense coins where the mostly is minted in the metals such as the copper, silver, gold, and the lead. The earliest coin found in the India contained a symbol and where is called punch mark coin. They were is the made of the silver and copper. And the 6th century BC onward, the first coin to bear the name and the image of ruler were to the issue by the Indo-Greeks, and who established control over to the northwestern part of the subcontinent. And 2nd century BC, their first gold coin were issued by their Kushan. That is the most important here. The Kushan is the founder of gold coin were issued by the Kushan. And next year, 1st century AD, the some of the most spectacular gold coin were issued by the Gupta rulers. That is also important. There are some of most is a spectacular gold coin were issued by the Gupta rulers, and their earliest issue are remarkable for their purity of gold content. There is the most important here. The coin provide the useful information regarding to economical history as they are used as a medium of exchange. Some coins were issued by the guilds or association of the merchant and craftsmen with the permission of the rulers. This shows the influence of the craft and the commerce. Coin also appearances is a king and the goods, and content is a religious symbol, all to which they wrote the light on their art and religions of their time. That is the most important here. A coin provided useful information regarding economic history as they were used as a medium of exchange. The next topic is here archaeology. There is the most important here. The materials remain of the past can be studied with the help of the archaeology, as archaeology is the science that is enabled used to the systematically is a dig the successive layer of the old mounds and to form on the idea of the material life of the people of the past on the basis of the remaining founder there. Archaeology is a very important to study of the history, and there is a period before the invention of written. The history is basically is based on the written material. Through the written was the known as the Indian by 2500 BC in the India's culture. Its script has not so far been to the despaired. Through there is the Harappans and now how to written, but is the historians have not been to the able to read it. Their culture is a place in the period called to the periodic historic phase. The first script of the is deciphered was the Brahmi, which was used in the Asokan inscription, and it is belong to the 3rd century BC. There is a most important here archaeologists here, and there is Harappan cultures is the most important. There is the read. The excavations has both to be like the tools of earlier human in a Indian going as back as a 7 lakh year. They excavated is a site belonging to the Harappans period show the layout of their settlement and the form of the houses in which the people lived. The types of poetry is tools and the implement they use and the kind of the care there is a consumed. In South India, some peoples were buried along with their tools, weapon, poetry, and other belonging under big and heavy stones. And this is a graves is known as the Malathas, and by the diggings, then we learn about their life of people who live in the Deccans and the South India before the 3rd century BC. The date of remain found in the excavations are fixed by the various methods. The most important of them is the radiocarbon or carbon 14 a dating method. There is a most important here. There is a dating of method or carbon dating method. Radiocarbon is a 14 is informed to the edge of the same time, and the carbon 14 is a radioactive carbon present in all living objects is a decline like all the radioactive substance as a uniform is a rate when to object is a dead. By measuring the loss of C14 content in the ascent object is a boards bone and its age can be determined. There is a most important here carbon 14 yeah radiocarbon or carbon 14 there is a most important from to the wood and bone is age can be determined. The history of climate and the vegetation is known through their examination of the plant residues and especially through the pollen analysis. On this basis is the suggested that agriculture was a pesticide is a Kashmir and Rajasthan around 700 to 600 BC. The nature and the component of the metal artifact can also be analyzed to scientifically and consequently is the mine from which is the metal were obtained are localized and stage in the development of metal technology identified. The geologically here a study provides an idea of the history of soil, rock, etc. Where is a perihistoric is man live and human histories cannot be understood without an idea of the continuous interaction between the soil and plants and animals on one hand and the humans on the other. Taken together with the archaeologically is remind is geologically and biologically study act as an important source for the reconstructions and development of human history. The next topic here is a account of the foreign travelers. There is a most important here. Their accounts of the foreigns are travels. Their indigenous is literatures can be supplemented by the foreign accounts. To India come Greek, Roman, and Chinese is a visitor either as the ambassador as the travel or to seek religious and knowledge from time to time. They have left behind on account of the things they say to be a court of the Chandragupta Maurya is come to Greek is a ambassador is called is a Megasthenes and who is a wrote a Indica. The Megasthenes is who is written to the Indica. Its original text is a lost, but part of it has been to the preserved to the fragment acquired by the quaint Greek writer. When they read together, this is a fragment of furnish is valuable information not only about the administration but also social class and economical activity of Maurya period. There is a most important here. Indica, the magazines, there who is wrote a Indica, there is the times of Chandragupta, Maurya and Greek adventure. There is the most important here. Greek and the Roman account of 1st and 2nd centuries is a mention. Many Indian port and commodities of trade between India and the Roman Empire. The very plus is there are Athens, she and the Potamines of the zero fix and both written in the Greek and provide to valuable data in this regard. Of the Chinese travel, mention may be made of the Fascinoid and the instance. Both of them is a Buddhist and come to and this is a country mainly to visit the Buddhist sharings and the study of Buddhism. Ephesians, who has come to India in the 5th century AD, described the condition in India in the age of Guptas, where Hushan's tank present of similarly account of India in the 17th century during the time of King Harshvardhana. The Harshvardhana Husan Tang is also described in a detail. The gallery of Nalanda universities is Bihar during this time. There is a most important year of Nalanda University is Bihar on this time. The next year are most important are changing notions of history. That is the most important here. It was suggested particularly by Western scholar that ancient Indians had no sense of the written history. But it is not a true. There is not a true as a but actually Indian as a sense of written history was different from that of the Westerner. The people from their best recorded even is a chronologically and order will their ascent Indian wrote in their different manner. It can be seen in the text is called to the Puranas and there is a 4 different ages called Krita, Terita, Devapura and the Kalis are mentioned. There is the most important and in each age we get a detailed list of the rulers and syntastics. Besides, there is a large number of inscriptions has been to discover. This give a genealogies of king of various dynasties and also refer to their achievements. It shows that India had their basic knowledge of time and the space where event were taking place. There is a most important. The modern research in the ancient India history is began in the 1765 when the East India is the company took control of Bengal and Bihar. In order to administer their Hindus law Manu Samriti, the ancient Indian text on the law was translated into the English in 1776. This initiated of effort of the British to understand the ancient law and the custom. And there is a culminated in the establishment of the Ascetic Society of Bengal in 1784. Under it is the ethics and that of the several other such a society, Hindu religious and classical texts were translated into English. The greatest impetus to the ideological study was given by Max Muller and German-born scholar. Soon the British realized that they are needed and intense is the knowledge of Indian scripture and social system to rule them better. Even the Christians is the missionaries left their need now more about the Indians' law and the custom in order to convert them and the help to the British strength and their rule. Well, the translating their text, Western scholar write about the Indian unwillingness to be their change and they began to the customized to despotic rule. There is a most important here. In 1904, is Vincent or Smith wrote a real history of India. It was the first systematic history of ancient India. In this book, his approach to the history was a pro-British and he tried to justify the British rule in India. It has served a good is a propaganda is a material for their speculations of domestic British rule. This India scholar carefully study ancient India text on the volatile to the demonstrate that ancient India had a keen sense of administration. Dr. There's a Bhangekar is a 1875 to 1950 and the epigraphist is a published book on the ancient India is a politically institution. H. Caesar Rai Chaudhary is the most important. The Rai Chaudhary is a 1892 to 1957 reconstruct their history of ancient India and while doing so utilize V.A. Sumit at many points. A stronger element appear in the return of R.C. is a my Judar is 1880s and 1980, who is the editor of the multi-volume history and culture of Indian people. Until 1960, Indian scholar inspired by the idea of the nationalism glorified their histories of their respective religions and of the Indian as such. The merit of the expounding their myth of is a despotism and goes to the K.P. Jaiswal is the 1881 and 1937. He wrote about the extensive of Indian is republics and self-government in ancient India. After the independence, a new trend of history took over. There was a shift toward the return of non-political history with a great emphasis on the society and the economics. The wonder that was India was one such as a pioneering work written by the A.L. Bhushan's 1940 to 1986. A further shift evidence in the D.D. Khoshbi is a 1907 to 1966. The book on the introduction to the study of Indian history. His treatment is a follow as a social economic aspect of ancient India history. After him, to large number of historians following there is a trend and focus on the social, economic, and cultural history. There is a main stress was on the mean of production and the social and economical relationship among different groups of people. Our most important topic arrive here a theme in Indian history. What is the theme of Indian history here? For on the overall knowledge of the past, students are to be made aware of various aspects of the society is called themes. And these themes enable us to learn about the development in a different sphere, social, economical, religious, political and cultural. The development in this is a sphere are so much is interlinked that they are often to the break the boundaries between them. For example, when the pastoral society of the earlier Vedic age got transformed into the shuttle agriculture society in the later Vedic age. The political system changed as the consequence. The king who was the earlier now as a Gopati is a lord of cattle. Is the pastoral society is become a Bhopati is a lord of the land. And with the development of agriculture economics and with that is the war began to the fault of the acquiring more land instead of the cow. The king is gradually is become a powerful and the kingship hereditary. So we have noticed that a change in a different. In this course of materials, you will be learn about their development in the field of art, agriculture, caste system, science and economics, technology and also about their rise and growth of various religious sects and schools. There is the most important here.